But the video this week is going to try to do what I've been promising for a long time, and that is explain Tapatya's rig. She's a junk rig schooner, and I want to talk through the various lines, the aspects of the rig, its advantages, disadvantages, and I'm going to try to do this in simple language. I'm going to try to do it in simple language. If you're a sailing expert, please excuse some of the simple terminology I'm about to use. I want it to be understood by all as far as possible. Let's see how I get on. So we're ghosting along in a light breeze. We're doing, about 3 knots, tad under maybe. But I think this could be the opportunity to talk through the rig a little bit. 2 sails, 4-sail. This is starting very simple, and the mainsail. She's a schooner rig, which means that the aft one of the two, the backmost one of the two, is the bigger sail, taller mast. It doesn't actually literally mean that, but in this case that is the case. That's how it is. So this is the bigger of the two, and you'll notice that we've got these full-length battens all the way across the sail. One right at the very bottom. It's not heavier than the others. Then we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 parallel battens. The 5th one sticks out a bit longer, look. And then it starts to fan up at the top. So 1 fanning batten and a wooden yard at the top. And what that means is that when we reef, and reef means to reduce the amount of sail you've got up, we can reef down to any one of those battens. We drop the battens down to the bottom, and each one of those battens gives us a possible reef point. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, possibly even 6 reefs that we could take. So we can vary the amount of sail up enormously on each sail. So that is a wonderful thing. I'm just going to interrupt it here and ask you, if you haven't subscribed already, to please subscribe to this channel. It helps me get out to a wider audience and to make more of this sort of thing. So looking at the end of the battens here, you'll notice that they're aluminium, firstly, 40mm diameter, and that's 3mm thick walls, so they're fairly heavy duty. The sheets, which we'll come to later, are attached to these fittings that are drilled through, and the sail has this lashed out hole which also fits to that same fitting either end, so the sail is stretched tight on the batten. Each of these battens has a line that goes around the mast. The one on the bottommost batten is a running line, which means we can adjust it. All of the others are fixed. Simply a bit of rope that's tied at the front of the sail and on an eyelet, not in the middle, but towards the front of the sail. If we look up, you can see those. Those lines are called Parrels. Parrels. Some people pronounce it Parrel. And the Parrels transfer the load from the battens, from the sail, to the mast, particularly when the sail is on the tack. That means that the sail is out to the side, that the wind is pushing the sail away from the mast. On one tack, the wind is pushing the battens tight against the mast. On the other tack, the sail is being pushed away from the mast, and the Parrels then are transferring the loads from the battens to the mast. Because the mast is tapered, the Parrels won't be truly tight, won't hold the battens tight against the mast, and it's all right for the sail just to hang a little bit away from the mast while those Parrels transfer the loads. Same effect on the forward sail. The running one, the running Parrel's the green one, and after that they're all fixed. The yard hasn't got a Parrel on it. However, the yard, you'll notice on that red line, has this red line. I follow it here. This is it coming from the cockpit. It goes through, I'm walking forwards. It goes through a block at the bottom of the mast, then up through a block on the forward end of the yard, around the mast, and is tied off to the forward end of the topmost of the parallel battens, the longer batten. That allows me to, when I pull on this line, it pulls the front of the yard down and lifts the aft end of the sail, so it tightens up the sail, and it's a wonderful thing. One thing that's really quite different on the junk rig is that each of the parallel battens has a sheet attached to it. That's a bit of rope that allows us to adjust how far in or out it sits. At the moment we're going downwind, the sail's out fairly square. You see each one of those battens has got a little rope, a sheet attached to it, and they all join together through a system of blocks and low friction loops and things. And come back here in the case of the mainsail to this arrangement. We've got a cam cleat on there so we can let the sail in or out from this position. And each batten is controlled, so we've got a lot of control, particularly for downwind work. It's very, very good indeed. And if we reef, we've still got sheetlets going to, or sheets going to every single batten that we're using. Very good system. The forward sheet comes to here, is on this cleat there. Obviously you can't adjust that quite as quickly as the cam cleat, but it is the same system. If I walk forwards, you'll see the forward sheet does exactly the same thing. I'm still using the old bit of rope I had from Miss Molly, my last boat. It will be changed one day, but it comes back to a system, a couple of blocks here on the dinghy block, on the dinghy mount, back through there, back to the cockpits. This means that both sheets can be adjusted from the cockpit. All the important lines are led back to the cockpit, so the halyard, which is the one that pulls the sail up, both halyards are led back to the cockpit, both sheets are back to the cockpit, both of the fore and aft adjusting lines, all the adjusting lines come back to the cockpit, so you don't have to go up on deck to do anything. It's very nice. I've talked before about the amount of balance, that is the amount of the sail that is forward of the mast, and I like to have a fair bit. You'll see I've got a reasonable amount forwards of the mast now, and I adjust that with this. I've got this fixed line here tied off here and around the mast. That gives me the maximum balance, so I adjust that to, well, I don't adjust it, but I set it to give me the maximum that I want. And then this running line, the running parrel here, I can adjust. It pulls the lower batten forwards if I tighten it in, so that way I can adjust the amount of balance I got. If you look at the foresail, you'll see I've got a bit more balance on that, quite a lot forward of the mast. That's really nice. So very easy to handle. We've got lazy jacks on. These red and white lines, just standing lines. Well, actually I can adjust them, they're not completely standing, but I don't adjust them. And so when we drop the sail, it just drops down into those, collects it all. It's very, very easy. So we're going to show you taking one reef in the foresail. Elizabeth's in the cockpit. I'm stood here on the raised deck trying to show you it. There's Elizabeth with a hand on the halyard. Let's turn around. Let's turn around and watch the sail. Okay, Elizabeth, go for it. She's just loosening the halyard and letting it down gently until that batten rests there. Perfect, job done. Tie off the halyard. That's good there, mate. Cleats head off, and then she would tighten in the red line and the sheet. Yeah, do the red line first, mate. The red line, remember, peaks up the top of the sail, so we'll watch her. She's going to pull that in as hard as she can, and we'll see what happens there. Hard as you can, a bit more. Yeah, you see the sail moving there. That's nice. Good. Cleat that off, and then the sheet you adjust to set the sail however you like. Probably wants to come in a little bit. And she's pulling in on the sheet. Sail's coming in, and we're ghosting nicely. Perfect. Nicely wing on wing at the moment, which means foresail's out on the starboard side in this case, and the mainsail's out on the port side in this case. Could be the other way around. Hopefully that will stay there when I wander back, and we'll see that. like that. And that's where a junk really does look beautiful, doesn't it? The balance, remember the part forward of the mast, has one wonderful bonus, and that is that if we jibe, and jibe means to go around with the wind behind you, the sail swings across, and in a normal Bermuda rig that's a dangerous thing, but if we jibe, it's no biggie. I suspect if we both walk over to this side of the, because there's not much wind, we can probably force it to jibe. Let's see what we can do. See if we can force a jibe. Come on, baby. No, we can't. Okay, we'll just sail wing on wing hips. So we're going to get Elizabeth to go forwards and try and imitate a jibe. Here it goes. And because of the balance, it goes over gently. It's no biggie. Even in strong winds, it's, you know, in strong winds it goes with a bit more oomph than that, it has to be said, but it's still not dangerous, so it's a wonderful thing. Jibing, no problem. So we don't want that reef in, so Elizabeth's now going to shake the reef out, as we call it. She's going to raise sail, so she's loosened the red line, the yard haul. She's loosened the sheet, and now she's going to pull in on the halyard to raise the sail. And it's a 3-part halyard, which means it's got a block and tackle arrangement on it, so it's relatively easy to pull. So let me show you the halyard with the sail in its furled state. Here it is. Got these 3 parts. This block on the yard goes up to the top of the mast up there. With the 3 parts, which amplifies our effort, makes it relatively easy to pull up the yard without assistance. We never use a winch. Just pull it up by hand. One last look. So you'll remember that each batten of those 6 parallel battens has a parrel, a rope that attaches, goes around the mast, which attaches the batten to the mast loosely, and then each batten is also sheeted on its end, so the load on the battens is spread between the sheet and the mast and evenly on each batten, which means the load on the sail is really evenly spread, and the loads on the boat are far less. The loading of the sail on the mast is spread evenly up from each batten, which means we don't need standing rigging to hold the mast up. Obviously the mast is keel stepped, it goes through the deck down through the keel, and that is enough to hold it up. It's a good strong mast, it has to be said, but the even spreading of that load means that we don't need any of that standing rigging, which is jolly expensive to start with and needs regular maintenance that Bermuda rigs have. One criticism that you hear often is that they don't go to windward. Well, I've already shot a video in the Bay of Brest of us sailing to windward, where we had a wonderful afternoon of windward sailing. And it's fair to say we don't point quite as high as a Bermuda. We wouldn't win a windward race with a Bermuda rig, this is a fact, but we do go to windward. That's not true at all. That we don't is not true. So windward sailing is possible, totally possible. Maybe in a similar way to a gaff rig boat, maybe. That's often said. I have to say, I feel we're a little bit better than the gaff rig boat. I think we'll point to 45 degrees, probably 40, 45 degrees. 45 degrees really. So not too shabby. The fact that we can get the sails out square, pretty much square to the, well, we could get them literally out 90 degrees to the hull centre line, means that we go downwind or off the wind very well indeed, and that is most cruising, let's face it, is off the wind. You know, I know some famous cruisers have famously said, "Who wants to go upwind anyhow?" And it gets scoffed at, but it's a valid point. A lot of cruisers I've spoken to say, yeah, we don't go upwind, or you know, we don't want to go upwind, and us cruisers, we spend our time trying to avoid going upwind, let's face it. This rig off the wind, beam wind and downwind, is wonderful, because we can get those sails out pretty much square. We've got no standing rigging stopping the sails going out, so we can get them out as far as we like. We could get them beyond square if we wanted to, but of course we don't want to. But it would be possible. So, all in all, the benefits, the ease of handling, the adjustability, the downwind or off the wind performance outweigh the drawbacks, and the only real drawback is that we're not quite as good to windward. So, plus, if you're building the rig yourself, it really is quite a cheap, perhaps not the right word, a cost-effective rig, shall we say. Another point, of course, is that because the sail is pretty much square, well, rectangular with the fanned top, we get a lot of sail area. The battens control that length of sail, so we get a lot of sail area on a relatively short mast. My masts are half the height, roughly speaking, of an equivalent Bermuda rig, and that's very useful when you're going under bridges. And when you're going under bridges and things like that. It's turning into a lovely sail, isn't it? Just saw some dolphins a bit in the distance, but beautiful. Hazel out there under full sail. Lovely day. Wind's just sort of picking up a little bit, isn't it? Just, what we're doing, 3.5 knots?
3.1.
3.1, yeah. But it's picking up without a doubt. Yeah. That wind's getting stronger. And we're accelerating. Isn't it glorious? Now, in the world of junk rig sails, there are several sail designs. I should point this out, I think. Mine are what are known as cambered sails, which means that the airfoil shape that we want a sail to have is cut into the cloth. If you look at them, you'll notice the pockets on the battens are shaped to allow the cloth to form the airfoil shape. Miss Molly, my first junk rig boat, had simply flat cut sails, just a plain piece of flat cloth with the full length battens across it. The nature of the cloth is that it stretches to give you some semblance of an airfoil shape, although not a perfect one, it has to be said. Hazel has the third variant, and that is she's got flat sails with bendy battens. Her battens have hinge points in them that allow the sail to form an airfoil shape by hinging the battens. Third variant. There is a fourth variant that I know very little about, and that's called the split junk rig, where the balance section forward of the mast is separate. There's a small slot and then the main section after that. As I said, I know little about it, and I won't go into it. The flat cut with stiff battens, the hinged battens, and the cambered sails, those are ones I have experience with. Hazel's rig, again, is a ketch rig. She's got a very big foresail with those hinged battens, and it sets beautifully. She sails really well, and I don't know if I were to do it again, if I'd go for that option. Maybe. I can't say. The cambered sails are sort of the newest thing, and I can't say I'm completely convinced. But they work fine. I'm happy with my sails. One of the great advantages that I haven't mentioned yet is that because we've got all of those reef points, we can reef down to the tiniest little panel. We don't have to carry a set of sails. We're not changing sails at all. We don't have a storm sail or a trysail or any of that. You don't have a suit of sails. So you've just got the two sails. They're permanently on, and you simply adjust the size to suit. Is another one of the sort of economic bonuses, and plus you don't need all the storage room. If you are thinking of designing your own rig, this is the book for you. It's not new, and there are people who complain about it being a bit dated. I mainly disagree. It has everything you need to know, including dimensions for masts. There are many junk rig sailors, and I'm one of them, who feel that the dimensions for masts in here are a little bit big, and we tend to go by this minus 10%, and that's exactly what I've done, and my masts are wonderful, I have to say, though I say so myself. Yeah, but great book, Practical Junk Rig, Blondie Hassler. Well, Hassler and McLeod. But there we go, that is it for this week. So as ever, massive thank yous go out to you for watching, the wonderful people who support this project, this video making via Patreon and paypal.me. And of course, if you'd like to support, you know how to do it, no doubt. That's it for now. See you next time for some sailing. Bye.